Cerebral Spice Rack. With you as always, Everett Heath. This is my podcast that I've been doing for a couple years now. We got a special episode for you tonight. We have the one and only Tim Baxter, formerly Assemblyman of New Hampshire. And what district were you Assemblyman for again? I know it was Seabrook.
There's so many damn districts, nobody even knows what they're called.
Oh, I know. There's too
But
many over there.
no, I actually do remember. It was Rockingham 20. So it was the 20th district for the county of Rockingham, and it was Seabrook and Hampton Falls, and then in the redistricting they totally cut up that district, so it doesn't even exist anymore. But it's just two towns, and
Yeah.
it was a slight tangent. The towns, almost couldn't be more different, even though they're right next to each other.
Oh
Seabrook's this
yeah.
blue collar town, and then you also have the beach, and then Hampton Falls was kind of just like a um, upper class, maybe slightly upper middle class in pockets, like closer to like traditional republicanism. So it was interesting trying to get the votes of all those people that were very different, obviously.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely noticed it when I was out there too. Yeah, if you guys don't know or don't remember, I went out there to support Tim in his congressional run back in 2022. Gave it our all, but our all wasn't enough. But we'll get more into that when with some more of these questions here. But I guess just at first, just introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? What got you into politics? All the basics.
Sure, and I really appreciate your efforts. Let me say too, it was a grassroots campaign, a lot of effort, not just me, but Dursey and other people on the staff,
Mhm.
all the knockers, volunteers. So it was a fun ride, and I learned a ton from
Mhm.
that experience. But just to answer your question more generally, I did a term in the state legislature. I ran for Congress. I'm a business owner. That's mostly what I've been focusing on the last year since the campaign ended. I own and manage 141 apartment units now, so I'm building
Very
a,
nice.
a yes, a some might use the word empire, um, but it's a lot of fun and a lot of challenges, and business is very different from politics, where you can have a swift impact in
Mhm.
a quick fashion. I'm buying typically distressed buildings that might be about to be condemned, places where they're just crime ridden in some instances. Some places, they're in okay shape, but there's just tweaks that need to be made to the drastic um, businesses where the properties are just totally mismanaged, and that's where a lot of the opportunity and upside is. And raising money, just like I was for the campaign, but now to partner with people and buy buildings. um, so that's mostly what I'm doing now. And then how I got into politics was, I think the biggest thing that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back was COVID, and just seeing, thing after thing, the politicians were just going drunk with power.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you just got to say, F it. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run. It was good timing for me. I had just started my business, which was flexible time wise. Um, and so I just did it, and the rest was history. And I won, which was a great honor to serve in the legislature. And then, kind of the same thing, there was an opportunity to run for Congress. There was a weak um, Republican front runner that ended up not winning. That was garbage, to be blunt. And the Democrat incumbent that held the seat was weak as well, and people thought the district was going to become more Republican with redistricting. So it's just a tremendous opportunity. And the way I look at life is, you got to go after those opportunities, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you just chop wood every day, so to speak, and you let the cards, or the chips, as the saying actually is, fall fall where they may. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, you did it, man. So you ran for state house. That was 2020, right? That's the year you started.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So started. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just asking when you got into the state house. So because I remember I met you back in 2018 when I went out to New Hampshire to work on all the
Yeah.
Yale races out there. And I guess in between that and I know COVID got all of us just very activated. That's one of the main reasons why I started this podcast because it was just I was stuck in my house. I couldn't work. I can't go out and do anything, and I knew I had to do something. Um, so I'm guessing I probably as you said too that COVID was definitely one of the main things. Like how was it in New Hampshire? Like if it got you so motivated to run. Like it must have been pretty bad over there in New Hampshire because I remember it was really bad in California. So I'm assuming it might have been similar over there.
I think you look at like other states, it certainly wasn't as bad as California, and so a
Yeah.
lot of it is kind of a question of like what you're willing to accept. And you look at California and you come to New Hampshire and you could say, oh, great, like, people are still living as normal. But,
Mhm.
there was just so much fear. And, our economy was completely messed up. Businesses were told they were essential or not. People were coerced into getting vaccines or not. There was families driven apart. Um, and so it just really makes you reflect on what's going on. And I think, it was kind of the first major crisis that I remembered so vividly. 2008, I was 10 years old, 11 years old. And I think it just kind of totally shattered like the sort of paradigm that I had of kind of what was going on in the country and the world. And I was politically, it wasn't like it just came out of nowhere, right? Like we met in 2018. I was knocking doors for
Mhm.
pro liberty, pro freedom candidates in New Hampshire. It just was eventually it was like this is batshit crazy.
Mhm.
Like what's
Yeah.
going on? So and in the state legislature, right, you can have a tangible impact. Um, mass bills, anything that could come up with lockdowns, vaccine mandates. One of the bills I carried in the legislature was trying to jail politicians that were violating people's medical freedom.
Mhm.
That actually got on the news, just very, very briefly, but did not get a lot of favorable coverage from the political class and the
Mhm.
media, shockingly. And it was one of the things in a way, and I look back on it fondly. But I got into trouble with the Republican establishment in New Hampshire because one of the first big sets of bills that I was voting on was COVID related policy, and you are expected to vote a certain way by
Mhm.
certain people, and I just didn't care, what they thought. I'll
Yeah.
listen to
Yeah.
them, but if I don't agree with that at the end of the day, and I got elected on a certain set of values, that's why the people voted for me. I just voted the way I thought I was right all the time. And very quickly, I get grouped with, the bad apples, so to speak. That's how the game works, right? And
Mhm.
politics is a nasty business, even when it's not even a business, because all the
Yeah.
state reps make $100 a year. And that's one of the things that is so crazy in a way, reflecting back on it, just the psychology of people, that there's people, they literally just volunteers, right?
Mhm.
Everett, they make $100 a year,
Yeah.
but they still some of those people still care so much what other people think
Yeah.
of them, and
Yeah.
that's it's not really rational but if you don't really if you don't have a strong identity and strong you know morals and principles or a track record to be your rock for you to guide your decisions moving forward, then you're just going to get eaten alive by the political animals. And that's what happens to people even when they're volunteers. And then when people are trying to jump the ladder and they're in Congress, it's just 50 times worse, obviously.
Mhm. Yeah, I really do commend you on actually getting in there and doing, some of the things you did to, advance liberty in the state. And, what you did doesn't just help the state you're in, but also the country. We needed so many people to stand up for, people's individual rights over that whole time period. And it was just insane how many people just capitulated to all of the nonsense that they were pushing on us. And, I did everything I could with the podcast and, trying to get out and door knock also to try to get people to wake up and understand what was going on with everything. So I know I made some sort of impact. I know you made a huge impact, and and I guess we'll continue. We'll fall right into the next question. Is it goes right along with this. So, during your time in the state house, what were your most important contributions to advancing liberty-minded policies? And I'm guessing some of these are going to be around COVID, like you just said.
Well, I guess first what I'd say too is I don't think I made a huge impact, though I do appreciate the kind words. But I certainly, um, pushed as hard as I can. And in terms of contributions, um, one of the things that's tough, like it's so different, for example, from business versus politics, is politics. It's kind of like this big puzzle, and you're trying to be one little piece to fit into the puzzle or one
Hmm.
little piece of the lever. But you look at like what Matt Gaetz did driving McCarthy out of
Oh
Congress.
yeah, that was awesome.
It's Right. And that what I'm getting at though is that it's rare where
Hmm.
something that drastic happens so quickly that isn't like one person that's in a position of power. Because typically a lot of these bills, and even at the local level too, you might have the Speaker of the House, the President of the State Senate, and maybe there's a couple people that are high up in the House, right? And maybe there's a governor, and there's five, eight, nine people, whatever, and they hash something out and make a decision. And that's how Congress has been run, for example, right? They just jam everything
Hmm.
together. CRs, Christmas omnibus, 3,000 pages. The only people that read it are staffers for the speaker and some of these exec and the people in the executive branch that write the bills, and
Hmm.
nobody even reads typically
No.
the whole damn bill, and let alone the members of Congress that are actually supposed to vote on this. And so in New Hampshire, um, there is a little bit more power that some members have. Anybody can create bills, so I was able to create bills. We were able to get votes um, on bills. I had a vote, or I had a bill to audit the election in New Hampshire just for election transparency. I had a bunch of other just pro liberty bills that I co sponsored or worked on, things like food freedom and just reducing just bureaucracy in general. Um, and then so there's all that legislative work, and then a big piece of it is just reading the 2,000 different bills. As a legislator, you probably vote on more bills in New Hampshire than probably any other state. there
Hmm.
might be there might be like a Texas or something that's comparable, but they're full time, right? So just reading all the 2,000 different bills, um, voting on all of those, showing up, that's a big piece of it as well. And doing it typically within like coalitions. It's when you're one of 400, right? It's hard to move the needle, but
Hmm.
if you're teaming up, right? If it's like me and Josh O'Kella and Melissa Blasek, and there's 20 people in the Freedom Caucus, whatever, that take a position. Um, that let's say it's on the budget, which was the biggest piece of legislation that passed in my first term, saying, okay, on the budget, we're going to have we're going to say that we want a late term abortion, so there's no abortion after 6 months, and we're going to say that we want reform on the state of emergency, and we're also going to push for educational freedom accounts, which was a very big change that happened. We made sure, right, by our calls to hardliners, that leverage that you couldn't pass a budget without our votes, or it would get very messy and the establishment would have to go with Democrats. They pushed the
Hmm.
budget and made the budget more pro freedom. So that was the biggest thing that I was able to contribute in, was passing that budget. The budget cut spending, cut taxes. How many budgets, right? Cut spending. That doesn't
Oh
there's no
wow.
other budget that I'm aware of that I can think of from other states. So it is kind of rare saying for a Liberty rep saying that passing a budget was their greatest achievement, but and of course the budget in 2023 this year was horrible. So it didn't necessarily stay that way. But the budget that I was able to vote for and support did do a good job. So I would say that, and then running for Congress is just a whole nother animal that we can get into too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed you touched on election integrity, and we just go over this real quick because when I was on the ground there knocking doors, I had multiple people tell me that, and you probably know the situation better, that people were being bussed up from Massachusetts to vote in your elections and whatnot. I don't know if you can expand upon that or what kind of things were going in New Hampshire during the 2020, even the 2022 election with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's just you just take a step back, right? For simplicity, a majority of this country thinks either the 2016 or the 2020 election was
Yeah.
stolen. Still thinks that too, by the way. You still have like Hillary Clinton, right, running around saying the election was stolen, and she literally, right, her campaign paid a British spy to fund the Steele dossier, which was the whole reason basically why the giant Russia witch hunt for
Mm-hmm.
Trump started, right? And of course, Hillary just got a fine. She got a slap on the wrist for all of that. And Trump, right there. And I'm going on a tangent now, but Trump, right? He's in New York, right? They're charging him with the crime of borrowing money from a bank and paying the bank back what you said they would pay. And
Yep, that's crazy.
and then it's literally insane, right? These banks, right, like J.P. Morgan, some of the banks he did business with, these are multi-billion-dollar banks, right? Even if it's a little bank, right? I've got a credit union. Their balance sheet, I believe, is like around $60 million, right? They're tiny, right? But they're sophisticated, right? They have 60 million, or a regional bank might have a couple $100 million, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
in assets. These people hire professional, independent third parties to appraise your property. Right now, it doesn't mean that they're smart appraisers, but these sophisticated banks hire professional opinions, right? And some of these appraisers might do a good job, especially as you work with bigger and more sophisticated banks. And what Letitia James is saying is no, no, no. JP Morgan, these billion-dollar banks are wrong because our bureaucrats at the city here that have never bought or owned real estate or know anything about real estate, we say that Mar-a-Lago and different assets are worth less, so therefore they are. It's the stupidest thing, and it's just like arrogance on full display. And I honestly can't decide like what's more insane, that or the fact that Trump is being charged because he paid a porn star with his own money instead of campaign money. And somehow it's like if he did it with the campaign, they would have charged him for that. So I still think that is the most insane thing because it literally, you ask most people, they think that he paid the porn star with not his money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the crime, right? He took some pot of money somewhere and that wasn't his own, and literally it's his own money. Um, so 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 anyway, that whole thing is insane. But your question was about election integrity. There's just a lot of questions, and whether it was just was there any fraud with mail-in ballots. Um, there are people that are concerned about busing. Different people were concerned about the machines. So, if you have so many people that doubt your democracy, it erodes, right, your trust in your elections and therefore
Mm-hmm.
your democracy. And it's just obvious that you should audit your elections, right? If you have a company, right, and people are questioning your books, right? People are questioning my books, and I'm like, well, we're not going to do an audit, right, of
Mm-hmm.
the financial statements, the books, right, because there's no fraud in them, right? And you just kind of scream it like that. It's like that doesn't make people trust you more.
Mm-hmm.
And the political class really didn't like the election thing. The other thing was the only real argument I heard was like, well, I don't want to pay for your stupid audit, right? Because there is no fraud. And I said, okay, there's a little bit of a legitimacy to that. So we're going to make the audit free. It'd be paid for by donations by third parties. There's a lot of people that want this, so the money will be there. And then it turned into, well, the audit is bad because there's no fraud, which really is just bullshit to
Mm-hmm.
be um, point blank. So that was an interesting, and of course, the typical people, right? The Secretary of State, David Scanlon, was against it, right? Just these typical characters that you would expect to be against the bill. And New Hampshire, just it's a target, right? If there's going to be
Yeah.
voter
Yeah.
fraud, because it's right next to Massachusetts. There's a lot of people their vote isn't going to move the needle in mass. There's kids that go to college. In New Hampshire, one of the reforms that I've supported in the legislature was saying, hey, you can't pay out of state tuition if you vote in New Hampshire, right? Because the government's not typically good at enforcing anything, but you just enforce it, let the college enforce it, right?
Mhm.
Because the colleges, UNH, Dartmouth, etc., they're racking all this money, right? I don't know exactly what it is, but let's say it's 10,000 or $15,000 of extra tuition from someone that's out of state from
Oh,
all these kids that are voting in New Hampshire elections, right? Their address is their dorm room. They don't actually live there, right? That's not their legal address, right? Because it's not theirs. They live there part of the year, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that stuff like that, that's just um, obvious, right? And people just don't want to address it. So there's big questions with election integrity because nobody's refusing to kind of adequately address it. And then it just how big is the scope, right, is a good question to have. And if we actually enacted some of these reforms, it would help alleviate all the just all the mystery with our electoral process. We could just do paper ballots.
Mhm.
Is one of the reforms that could make things easier. And then like a whole separate thing, but adjacent to it. A lot of people will say, well, the election wasn't stolen, but it was effectively stolen. And you look at how Zuckerberg spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and nobody knew that was necessarily going on at the time to that fashion. Basically just trying to outright buy the election,
Mhm.
right? And worse than that was the impact from the media, suppressing stories like Hunter Biden, um, stories being suppressed additionally in social media, on Twitter. The government is colluding with Twitter to suppress certain stories. What is the earned media, monetary impact of that? Obviously, it's significant. Um, and so, even if the election wasn't necessarily stolen, it was probably effectively stolen by the media. And that's something that the media, they just want to pretend that all they do is they're just the gold standard in journalism, and people don't believe that anymore. And ultimately, you have to ask yourself if they're going to refuse all these different institutions, right? Whether it's universities, different agencies of government, the media, etc. If they're going to put up the charade that what they do is perfect, then people aren't going to believe in them anymore. And that's what's happening now. And ultimately, a lot of these agencies need to be reformed or dismantled.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really the only pathway for it in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. They're so corrupt, and with all of the, it's not even just evidence at this point anymore. It's there's so much proof of collusion between the media and the government, just pushing an agenda here, and people just they still deny it, even though it's right in front of them. So it's very frustrating. But um, anyways,
I got
we'll
I got
go
something to
ahead.
show you. This is my he him mug.
Oh, look
I
at
need
that.
I need you to know my pronouns because I thought with the beard that you might have a question about what my pronouns
I
are.
was questioning it. No.
Oh my
Oh,
god, what the fuck is wrong with our world? That's where we are now.
it's insane. Yeah, that's definitely going to be one of my next episodes because I don't know if I ever told you, but I have a degree in microbiology, so I know a little bit about what's going on with the human being, with our biology, and it's just kind of ridiculous to see what everybody's trying to make it out to be. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's ascientific, just horse crap. But anyways, we'll get back to the questions here. So now I guess we'll go on to your race in Congress. So what do you think were some of the factors that led to you not gaining much traction in the New Hampshire congressional race?
Yeah, I think ultimately there was a lot of things we did right, and at the same time we were still, we were close in some ways, but still just very far away. A lot of it just came down to money. Um, I spent $314,000 of my own money
Oof.
personally that I'll never get back.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a lot of money. It was almost all the money I had at the time, and you know, obviously, look, I'm going to be fine, right? I own um, a substantial portion of 141 apartment units. That's literally just a year's work.
Mhm.
Um, and so I feel I'm very, I'm in a great position, and I work really hard, and I have all the knowledge to continue to build on that business success that I've had. Um, but I still was like, I'm willing to part with everything I've done to this point. Um, to go ahead and run for Congress. Plus, right, I didn't work right full time for 15 months. So all the money, right, that I basically made in about a year, right, I had a great year before that. I had to not have a big year. So I made about $250,000 less
Mhm.
in 2022 than I did in 2021. And so the thing is, like, I didn't really give up 300,000. I basically gave up, five or six
Yeah,
hundred thousand is
exactly.
one way to look at it. But I made a lot of connections, which has helped me in the future. Um, but like, I never did it. It was never about the money. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people, especially as I was doing it, they couldn't wrap their mind around. They're like, you shouldn't do this. This is too much money. And it's like, you don't the biggest resource everybody has is time, and you have to decide what's important to you, and life is a series of choices. And I look at, how can I, what's my impact, what's the legacy, what's sort of the thrill or the journey while you're trying to do those things. And that was the impact that I wanted to fight for, was stopping all the messed up stuff that our government and our politicians are doing to us. So I was happy to do it. But 314 is what I put in. The campaign raised a little over $500,000 on top of that. So we spent,
Damn.
about 850 is what the campaign spent.
Mhm.
Caroline Levitt was over 1.5. Matt Mowers was about the same as that as well. Gail was over 1 million. Caroline and Matt had super PAC money, so like Caroline
Mhm.
outspent me 3-1.
Yeah,
Matt
yeah.
would have outspent me, I don't know, like 6-1, something like that, maybe a hair over 6-1. Um, and so that was just a big piece of it. Is one of the things that was perceived really well was my brother Taylor with special needs. We did a television ad where it was just unscripted. We put him in front of the camera, we just interviewed him, and we just saw the answers he gave, and produced it right
Mhm.
into a television ad. And that got a really great reception because it was different and it was real. And we just didn't have enough money to buy enough gross rating points to um, get that message to move further. um, so that was a big part of it. Part of it, I think, was just, as a candidate, being 25. I think about the depth and breadth, just the life experience I'll have in 5, 10 more years from now, just how
Mhm.
much life experience I've grown running my business in the last year. I think that's a big piece of it too. And obviously, look, like, I presented myself about as good as any 25-year-old, I think,
Mhm.
will
Oh
do.
yeah.
But um, I think that's a piece of it too. Um, so those were two big things. In terms of like what the campaign, like the people that volunteered and worked for us, what we did with the money we had. Um, you know, um, there's really like no regrets that I have. There's always things you can do better,
Mhm.
and there's always things I could have raised more money. Those would be the things, like, I just wish I would have done better. And if
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
going back and doing it now, I would do even better. Um, but that's obvious, right? You're always going to
Mhm.
improve. So I just think the money and the biography not being as powerful. Imagine if there was like a Dan Crenshaw, right? Someone that was a Navy SEAL, that type of biography. Now, regardless, like, I'm not a Dan Crenshaw fan,
Yeah.
but if there was that type of person in our primary, they probably would have done really well, because there was kind of, it felt like there was a lot of political people, and then people there, me and Russell had like some business experience, but we didn't talk about it in a way that kind of made sense. And I think at times too, I tried to kind of like make it like I almost like we're having a resume competition where it's like, well, these are all the different votes I took. So, I'm good on these policies and I have business experience. I've been in the
Mhm.
legislature and, I've done some nonprofit work and like nobody gave a fuck about any of that at the end of the day. Like DeSantis, right, who has a great resume, the campaign's going horribly, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fucking dumpster fire because running for office is a popularity
It
contest.
really is, yeah.
It's like running for class president, right? I've seen just like everyone else. I've lived through student government elections. There's usually someone that's really fucking funny, right? I remember Kevin Coyle. He ran for vice president my going into my senior year of college and or high school, and he did what was the rap video? It was I think it was like Fetty Wap or
Oh
something.
no.
He, like he just like played a Fetty Wap video and started like singing along to it or whatever and maybe dancing. And it was freaking hilarious. And he won, right? He won.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even think he made any promises or plans whatsoever, nor which is actually like the best kind of candidate because there's no promises. He didn't do anything. Everyone's happy, I guess. But that's kind of like running for Congress or president in a way. Um, so I would, I think I'd recognize that too. And I think like Caroline actually did well because, you know, she didn't really have a resume, besides like she worked for Trump,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
people liked her, right? People connected with her. They didn't like Matt, right? People in the end hated Matt,
Mhm.
right? And they liked her. And she had enough money to make the case, and that's why she won. So I think that's kind of a good case study, just that right there.
Yeah, I really do think it had a lot to do with just the amount of money. I mean, it's crazy how much you put in, and then we only got what 3% at the end of the day. Out of the six major candidates or five or however many it was. Um,
We got more than that. We ended up with 9. It still doesn't sound good, but it's better than 3.
okay, okay, yeah. Well, but you were, I mean, not to take any shots or anything, but we were last out of the big five contenders, right? The ones that were on the debate
Yes.
stages.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. The point you're making is right that we could have performed better for sure.
yeah. And maybe that's due to the fact we you guys spent too much money earlier. I don't really didn't have any control over any of that, nor did I want to. But it just it because I saw a lot of support maybe when we were halfway through the campaign. Maybe like a month and a half out when you guys were
Yes.
pushing all the ads. Like I was getting really good responses at the doors, and then just as the election came closer, it just seemed
I just eroded.
that
Yeah.
yeah, people were getting so overwhelmed with all of the door knockers, both Republican and Democrat, all with all the different candidates that they were just kind of over it, and they just kind of wanted to just watch their TV to let the TV tell them what to think and what to do. I that's just my opinion. They just whoever they saw the most on TV that they liked the most. Because I thought I might be biased, but I thought your messaging was great in that race, and there aren't a
Yeah.
lot of other candidates around the country that I've heard with that kind of messaging. It was just kind of insane, especially in the live free or die state that has the you know what is it the free state project and everything. Just to see, I don't know. It's either those, and this will be the next question too. It's either a lot of those people just didn't vote, or they voted libertarian, or you did capture a good amount, and then there just wasn't enough. So. But anyways, yeah, that'll bring
Yeah.
us. Go ahead,
I
son.
think it's no, I think it's that, and just some of the things you said are interesting there. That was definitely the case with the money thing. A lot of it is you want to spend as much as you can in the last 30 days, and the
Hmm.
TV, especially being so involved with Yal, after then running for Congress myself. Um, I definitely am a big believer that TV is probably the most powerful advertising medium that campaigns
Yeah,
typically
yeah.
utilize because you can get a message across, um, not just a written message, but you can get a video across, right? The fact that my brother Taylor, right, who has special needs, even if people don't like him, which most almost everybody does, he's memorable, right? And the fact that you can basically put him in their living room, right? And if you play him, if somebody sees him 50 times, eventually they're going to remember what the freak he said, or less than that. That's a big thing. Whereas the door knocking, it's kind of tough because sometimes if you can get somebody to talk to you for 5 minutes, and some people do, you'll win votes that way. But you
Yeah,
might have
yeah.
100 doors right in a day, and only you only actually win 3 votes, and the rest of it's kind of sloshing around. And like hopefully they remember the name at least. And with the ads, we were trying to juice support early in like um, July into early August to try to get super PACs to come out and support me, like Rand
Mm,
Paul's PAC and the Club for Growth. And we were close. I saw a poll with us in second at one point. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and we just weren't close enough. And so the money didn't come. And then Caroline started spending money. And it kind of at the end turned into this two-way race within the last kind of like 2, 3 weeks. And
Mhm.
um, people, they get bombarded, and it's kind of like they just forgot. They kind of like we were right, we were in second at one point in time, and people just kind of forgot what's going on, because in part, right, a lot of those people, it's like they would have voted for us that day,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But there's like 5 different races going on, right? There's
Exactly.
governor and
Yeah.
lieutenant, and so then they just kind of forget. Unfortunately, that's what happened.
Yeah. But yeah, that'll kind of bring us into our next question, which is so, and this might be a more spicy one, but
All right, here we go.
what do you think of the Republican electorate in New Hampshire?
Like, what do I think of the electorate? I guess honestly, what I would say is I think the electorate is more similar to a lot of states than people would think.
Hmm.
Um, like you mentioned the Free State Project, I definitely think that's a small
Yeah,
contingent.
yeah.
Like I live with someone that's a Free Stater now, right? That doesn't even vote, right?
Oh, yeah.
They don't even believe in the Free State Project, funny enough, but they're still here. Um, so you just get stuff like that. I think New Hampshire's less religious. Like that's a noticeable difference. And there's independents that can vote that are not all of them super Trumpy. Some of them are more moderate, but they definitely, I don't know, 2/3, 70% are Trumpy and just fed up with the BS in
Hmm.
general. Um, but it's a mix of people, and I just think the dynamics are still the same anywhere, right? It's still a popularity contest anywhere. I think things that we did well was like that we had an authentic message. I think I came off as authentic, whether people liked me or not, and like that all bodes well because people want something that's different, something that's real. And I gave out my phone number to people. There were people that liked that voted for me
Hmm.
just because of that specific thing, and not necessarily like an issue. Um, because they were like, "Oh, this is different. No one's ever done that before,"
Hmm.
and I can actually
Yeah,
talk.
authentic. Yeah.
There was a couple of people. There's one guy I can think of, for example, that was in Fremont, right? He knew Josh O'Keller, for example, because Josh was just rep. And he's like, "Yeah, I thought Caroline was a little bit better than you. I was watching the debate, but then he keeps texting me, like once a week, and he's probably thinking it'd be damn cool if his member of Congress he could text
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
So stuff like that we did well. I think the electorate is there's nothing super fascinating there, honestly.
Yeah. All right, let's see what's the next one do I got for you? So I guess just moving on with what you're doing currently. So what are some of your current endeavors, if any, in advancing the principles of liberty in the state and country?
So I do a lot of just running my business and hanging out with friends and family, spending more time with my brother. I'm going to India with a tour trip in November. That's going to be
Oh,
cool.
nice.
And
Yeah.
I've never done like an adventure like that. So that will be fun. But I've been, politics wise, I've done very little, which has been nice. And I'm not done with politics by any means or anything like that. I still really care, but I spent just a ton of time and money, and it's been nice to recharge and solve problems through business. um, the two biggest properties I bought, one was 73 units in South Carolina. That property, um, was just a freaking mess. There's just so much crime. We would get just stacks of reports of all the crimes, right? Just on Monday that happened on
Jeez.
the weekend. We've had, I don't know, probably like 50 break-ins, right? I've owned the property since January. So we're talking like a break-in like every week probably on
What the
average.
hell?
Yeah, and I bought this property for 34,000 a door, right, an
Mm.
apartment. So it was dirt cheap as far as
Yeah,
apartment
that's crazy.
go, and it was because it was getting run into the ground. And if it kept going that way, the place would have got condemned eventually. And just literally nothing had been done in terms of structural repairs to the systems at the property in 50 years, basically, since the place was created. So being able to turn around and fix things like that, make apartments livable and safe, drive returns for investors, um, that's it's been a lot of fun, and very fulfilling running a business. um it's been interesting too, like seeing people lie to my face. I had someone hand me a letter that they owed me 11 months worth of rent. I took over the building, like they were the previous landlord, which is insane that they let them not pay rent for 10 months. So now we're on the 11th month, like obviously they're going to get evicted. um and they're handing me this letter saying like I paid in June, I paid in July, and I paid in August, and I've paid in September. And here enclosed is my payment for October, and there's nothing in there. Like, how insane does somebody have to be like, not only like the rambling, incoherent letter, but also, to not then pay you,
Mhm.
um, when they say they're literally giving it to you in their hand. Um, we had one guy die in a unit this year.
Oof.
That property in South Carolina, we've had somebody stabbed in the parking lot. And just the fact that we've been able to dramatically reduce the amount of crimes going on there, by, putting up cameras and putting money into the building and getting rid of tenants that weren't paying rent, which
Mhm.
happened to be most of the tenants that were committing crimes at the property. Big shocker there. So, there's just we're doing like multiple jobs in one in different cases. Um, just the crime at a lot of these properties is a big thing, and obviously that's driving the property values into the ground. We had another property where the previous owner wouldn't fix the septic tank, so you have, it was a literal piece of shit, right?
Oh,
They wouldn't fix the septic tanks, and
jeez.
we come in there, right, and we're able to make that place livable and safe for tenants. And that property was about to get condemned. um, and it's just a win-win by fixing it up. So
Mhm.
that that's kind of just a taste. That's what I've been doing the last year. That should give people a pretty good idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say, there's a fair amount you can do in politics, but I don't want to say that what you're doing and what other business owners are doing across the country is more impactful to some of these, ideas of liberty that we're trying to push. Because obviously, you fix like what you're doing, fixing up a place to make it actually livable, and reducing crime and all that. That creates an environment where people can actually flourish and actually, start to pursue their own, means of happiness and fulfillment in life. So, I mean, that's would be my takeaway is that I don't know if you feel the same way, but you're probably doing more, good in the world now than you were doing, in the state
I've heard
house.
it.
But
I've heard both. I've had people tell me that I make a bigger impact now, and I should never run for anything again. And I've heard people say that I should run for my state rep seat again or run for something else. Just like anything else, I'll just do whatever
mhm.
the fuck I want to do, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think you're impactful in both, but yeah. Anyways, let's go, we'll move on to the next question here. So, I guess you might have just touched on this. So, do you have any plans to run for office in the future?
Not right now. The only plans I have are to not run for anything in 2024. So I've made that commitment. Uh, Thankfully, I've stayed sober for this year from politics, and I will in 2024. And I hope that I might just do it forever.
Yeah.
Kind of a bitch. But I don't know. We'll see after 2024.
Yeah, I don't doubt it with especially how that run was and just how, I like the how dirty politics is just for even what I've been into, just working with Yal and other political things across the country. It's a very dirty place to work just mentally and emotionally. It's there's no other way to explain it. It's something you kind of got to
Yeah,
experience for yourself before you know how like bad it actually is. Even though there are some of the greatest people you'll ever meet in your life and that do some of this work. So I don't know. I do hope you run again at some point, but obviously
appreciate
that's just it's a hard decision to make, and like I said, it's just so dirty. It's a very hard thing to push yourself to do personally. There's actually a opportunity for me to run for state house here, but
Wow.
living in Wyoming, it's just I would have to drive to Cheyenne, a couple times a week, and that's what maybe like 3.5 hours across the country, or not the country, but the state.
Yeah,
And
that's a lot.
and especially during winter, I might die on the fucking road out here, because winter is horrible out here. Like a lot of people lose their cars and lose people, and it's just
Is it worse than New Hampshire?
so I think you guys get more snow, but with the amount of like wind that we have and just
Oh,
like
geez.
and the temperatures that like it was like -40 for a week over here. So I don't know if you guys get down that low, but
We don't get that low.
yeah, it's a
You
little
guys
rough
make
coming
mistake.
coming from California because it's completely different than there. And the main reason I moved to where I live now is because I did all the research and it said that this place doesn't have much snow. But last winter was just insane.
That's false marketing.
It really is. I don't know where they're getting their data from, but anyways, I really would like to run, but it's just I want to keep myself safe and alive to do stuff in the future and
Well, if you do, let me know for sure. Um, but it is a big sacrifice, and you do have to ask yourself, what do you think is the best way to make an impact? Whether
mhm,
that's just with your career, with your family, in your community, and there's really no right or wrong answer necessarily. Um, just if you do run, it should be for the right reasons,
yeah,
or even if you are involved in politics as an activist, like you've been.
mhm,
And I agree with you that some of the best people I've met have been through politics, but a lot of the most craven,
mhm,
power hungry, just shells of human
yep,
beings are also in politics as
exactly.
well. And obviously they're there for the wrong reasons. I do got to get going soon. If you got any other couple questions, let's just knock them off. Boom, 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 rapid
Okay,
fire.
yeah. I only got three more, so we probably just do like speed run some of these. So what do you think your biggest concern right now is for politics in your state and then the country?
Dude, that's our country disintegrating into hellhole. Like, I feel like we are. It's New Hampshire turning into a communist hellhole, and
Mhm,
it's the United States disintegrating and just the republic falling apart, kind of like Rome did. And that spending, you look at our education and our culture, you look at our just out of control, insane foreign policy. I think all of those things, just our country disintegrating um, from all those different things, and ultimately, the political class is driving all of that. But in New Hampshire, it's probably becoming you know, just a communist hellhole. Basically, is my biggest concern. In New Hampshire, it's just, or the United States, it's just everything is accelerating at a rapid,
mhm.
horrible pace. All those things.
Yeah, it's insane. That's why I got out of California because that place is just devolving faster than anybody could have ever imagined, and that's sad. It's happening to your state too. It's just happening
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's a big thing too, is the crime, right? You've
Mhm,
got, people that are just drugged up, defecating on the streets, right?
mhm,
And there isn't the courage to say, okay, that can't continue, and it's not compassionate to allow someone to basically exist in that mental prison that we are all looking at them, walking by them every day, and for the most part letting that continue, right? That's
mhm.
obviously insane, right? We don't let people commit physical suicide, right? For example, so why would we let something like that continue? Um, why would we let just property values be eroded? Um, there's and then obviously there's things that shouldn't be illegal, right? We've
Mhm.
got people that are in jail, right, or they're getting arrested for using a plant, right? It's just a crazy
Yeah.
world we're in where in South Carolina, right, in Orangeburg, South Carolina, we've had people that have broken into apartments and they're not arrested, right? So we have people committing crimes, they're not arrested and going to jail for an actual crime, and obviously that just hurts everyone around us. So
Mhm.
the crime is another just a crazy. A lot of it's just the laws politicians have passed in cases are idiotic, whether that's you know in my opinion not going tough enough on violent crimes, which should be illegal and should be enforced, or there's things that shouldn't be illegal that are illegal.
Mhm. Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. So I guess we'll just wrap it up with this last one. It's a quick one. So if there was one thing you wish every American would understand, what would that be?
That's tough
It
because
might
there's
be a
so many.
tough one, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different things like about politics or about life. I would tell every American, they should value time more. I would tell them,
Mhm.
if it's about business or finances, everybody should read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Everybody should try to be grounded, in whatever their faith is, in their community, their family. So all those different things, I would tell people, to think about those different things. I think maybe like on that, a lot of people aren't deliberate enough with their time and their actions. um,
Mhm.
I tell people to get a hold of that. Try not to blame other people as much because there's a lot you can do. Like if you're in the United States of America, you already won the lottery
Yeah,
when you were
yeah.
born. And the question is, how do you take advantage of that? Even with everything the politicians are doing, right, to make systems rigged against people and screw people, there's still a tremendous opportunity here, and people should try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree there, and great answer. So I guess we'll wrap it up so we can get you out of here. Just thank you so much, Tim, for doing this interview with me.
Thank you.
It was really awesome to get talk to you again and get some of these things laid out to where I can know what your thoughts on some of these issues with our country are and how that race went and how you thought about it. Should definitely do this again at some time. If I don't know if you ever want to do another podcast with me, like I said, I'm going to do one on the whole transgender issue at some point here. So yeah, let me know if you ever want to do something like that, and we'll set it up. But yeah, just
Good to chat, man. I'll see you around, Everett. Okay.
alrighty. Thank you, Tim. Alrighty, have a good night, man, and everybody keep
You
it
too.
spicy out there. Hope you learned something. Alrighty.